Hey, Bay Hope family. Pastor Andy here with our good friend Sherrie Leatherwood. Sherrie, tell us what you do here at Bay Hope.
So here at Bay Hope, I have the privilege of directing Bay Hope Cares.
Awesome. We love our care ministry. Our care ministry has been doing great things, but during this sort of COVID-19 coronavirus thing, how how have we been helping to care for people? What has Bay Hope been doing in all of this?
Currently, we have about 50 volunteers who have stepped up, and we've identified about 350 whom we're caring for. We're doing that a variety of limited ways from the safety of your own home. We're sending cards, making phone calls, grocery gift cards, and a couple of other things as needs begin to trickle in. And I just want to pause and thank those who are in the medical field as well as first responders. We identified 126 of you that attend Bay Hope. We know that there are more of you, so if you would like for us to care for you, just reach out. There's a button on the Bay Hope website that says, I need help. That's how you let us know who you are. And then there's also a button that says, I want to help. So get involved.
Yeah, bayhope.com. Everything is on our newly redesigned homepage. I want to help and I want to get involved, and that's going to go directly to Sherrie and her team. So that's just how to sign up to be a part of it. In this sort of time of self-isolation that people are going through, a lot of the things that we're seeing online is I'm going stir crazy. The walls are starting to close in, yada yada yada. So, do you have any tips, kind of, from your team on how self-care works in a time like this?
So I'm so glad you asked. I spent some time yesterday in a chat room with Dr. Henry Cloud, and he is known in the global world of knowing how to bring teams together in global crisis. He also is able to do that in corporations as well as churches, and we're just going to reduce the information and the content that he's provided to our personal families.
Right.
Because it's applicable, and it was such a privilege to be in the session yesterday with him. So I'm going to pair some of the stuff that I've learned at the Townsend Institute, which I'm a recent grad, and the things that I heard and learned from Dr. Henry Cloud yesterday. So no need to take notes, because we are going to provide a PDF here in the next day with all of this content and resources for you. My hope is that it is very helpful and that I can get through it, pretty rapidly. The first thing we want to do as a family, and by the way, if you find yourself, saying, but I don't have a family, I'm it. Yes, you do have a family. God's provided Bay Hope as your family.
Yes.
And together we are connected. You are not alone.
Absolutely.
So I just want to let you know that God uses Bay Hope Church as your family.
Absolutely.
So let us step in and be that for you during this time. So just yesterday, the things that Dr. Henry Cloud brought to our attention were powerful. And the very first thing he talked about was naming it. Okay, so a lot of us want to protect our kids and protect ourselves and just kind of pretend like, we don't need to mention it. But the reality is, when we name it, it has less power over us. So just think about your brain right now. Your brain, in the darkness of the night, knows how to get out of bed and walk to your bathroom because it's mapped out. It knows how to get there.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night, just imagine that you get out of bed in the darkness and your brain map is headed to the bathroom, but you bump into this huge table that's just been dropped down in your bedroom. And you're like, I don't even know how to get to the bathroom anymore. And that's what the global crisis is doing to each one of our brains right now. So we need to step back, take a couple of deep breaths, name the crisis, name the reality, and that frees up space in our brain in order to learn how to walk around the table. We're not going to ignore it. We're going to name it. But we're going to remap our brain so that we can actually walk around it and navigate it. So I am going to refer to my notes if you don't mind. So you and I have been given an effective way in this very moment how to retrain your brain. And the way Dr. Cloud described it is it's like you're doing whatever it is in your computer to free up the RAM, so that you can think a little bit more clearly. So I hope that that's beneficial. Have conversations with yourself, with your family, with your work teams, and name the crisis out loud. Some of you might have bad names to say about it, others, whatever that looks like. Because when you do this, you'll develop new ways of thinking and patterns to get around that pesky table that's just been dropped in all of us. At that moment, clarity will be restored. You'll bring reality into the room using words out loud, saying that everything has changed. It seems a little obvious, but most of us aren't bringing words to the reality, and our brains are still super cluttered. So calling it what it is and how it makes us feel has the power to reduce the anxiety and the confusion and will bring calmness to your brain. So do this with your kids, age appropriately. Bring the conversation into the room. Not having the conversation creates confusion for all of us.
Yeah.
So for some kids, they don't have the vocabulary. So we're going to provide some resources, some tools that will help them expand their vocabulary as well as ours.
Great.
So in regards to anxiety and worry, when we do this, it reduces both of those. Give yourselves a set amount of time to worry, and then you're able to move on. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to name 5 very specific things we can do in these times of crisis, beyond naming it. Once you name it, here's some powerful, powerful tools. The first one is very foundational. You and we are created and wired for connection, period. We are wired to connect with ourselves, we're wired to connect with God, and we're wired to connect with each other. And during these times, this crisis has disrupted all of our connections that we're totally familiar with. And without connection, we experience isolation and loneliness.
Yeah.
And this type of loss leads to worry, leads to anxiety, and leads to depression.
Absolutely.
My hope in saying these things is to make you know that you're not weird, that you're not weak, and that you're not frail. This is what happens when connection is lost. These things happen. So during these times, support's not an option. How we do this has shifted, but do it anyway. Be intentional, get creative, let other people know that you need them right now to keep yourself from slipping into isolation. Be with others, be there for others, make it happen. Zoom chats, text messaging. Recognize the excuses you make for yourself and your defenses that come up that keep you from actually taking these steps, and find ways to be together. For some, you might have to call a truce with people that are living in your home in order to be connected. So for some of us, we came into this crisis with complexities of crisis, and this has intensified everything.
Yeah.
So please know that I'm mindful of you and lifting you up in prayer, because I know it's real. But each one of you, each one of us are worth connection. We're valuable, not only in the eyes of God, but in the eyes of the church and one another. And you are worth somebody being there for you. And I'm wondering during this time, who is there for you? I know in my life, I have made sure that I've put people there for me. So the second thing is to frame your days. Structure in all of our lives is powerful. When structure is lost, which it has, white space fills the room. And it's like so loud, right? This white space creates a sense of powerlessness, and it creates confusion for everyone. What would it look like for you and your family to, in these coming days, develop a routine? Most of you probably already have. But in that routine, you set personal boundaries. You have daily briefings, which could be also called family meetings. And during those meetings, you ask yourself some very specific questions. So if you're in a home and there's nobody to have a meeting with, you can have a meeting with yourself. And during this meeting, you determine the priorities for the day. And those around the table will work to agree to move towards those priorities. And you'll develop roles and divvy up responsibilities, so that you're all in this together. God forbid the mother who's doing all the cooking and cleaning
Amen.
and laundry by herself.
Absolutely.
You guys step up. It's togetherness.
Absolutely.
And this shouldn't fall on one person. 3 questions I'm going to give you to ask during that family briefing, that team briefing, whatever it is. Number 1, are you there for me? Are you accessible? Are you responsive? And are you engaged? And questions that you can ask are, how are you? Let everybody go around and give a 30-second answer. What's most important for you today? Go around and give a 30-second answer. Everybody gets to be heard. And number 3, let everybody around the table know what you need today, because you get to show up. Your needs matter. So those are really, really important. So in that family meeting, once again, define structure, define roles, responsibilities. Do this each day, because kids forget, parents forget, we get derailed and sidetracked. But when we do this, there's a sense of calmness that comes to our brain, because now we have clarity.
Yeah.
It is possible to be calm in an environment amongst chaos, but it takes intentionality. It takes providing a track for the train to move forward. That's the goal. Routine structure brings predictability, stability that results in living in a little bit of freedom in all of this chaos. So the first 2 things I've talked about is foundation, be connected, have support. The second is build a frame, routine, and structure. So the next 3 things I want to mention, this third one is, we all know what fight and flight and panic and being paralyzed looks like. Some of us at deeper levels than others. So this is what I'm going to talk about for just a few minutes here. These things cause us to go into what's called an adrenal overload. Some of us are adrenal junkies, so we love this. Like, we're addicted to this. So we're going to create it even if we don't need to. These are the kinds of people we don't need to be around right now.
These are the kinds of people.
These are the people. So just be really self-aware. We know that activity relieves stress, but that's not what we're talking about right now. We're trying to tone down the parasympathetic nervous system. So we're trying to bring calmness into the room. So do your exercise, get your walk, ride your bike, do those things. Those are relieving stress. But right now, we're talking about that adrenal, rush and charge that kind of overtakes us when we're full of fear. So ways to do this, before I give you these ways, I just want to let you know that we're human. And for those of you who are over spiritualizing this, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's a defense mechanism. And for those of us who say, oh, we're fine, are we? Like, really, really, denial is a defense mechanism. So really, really take some time and just really own this, zone in on it. The goal is to bring the intensity of the emotion that maybe you don't even have words for down. So when you bring that intensity down, you're not all amped up, and your whole family, can be a little bit more relaxed. So suggested ways to achieve this: set aside some quiet time. So put your fingers together like this. This is what they use in the school system, in high trauma. You see this butterfly pat that I'm giving myself? This is a great self-soothing technique for children. And when you do this, I don't know, I'm just like, it's so soothing and calm. This is self-soothing. So if you're an adult and you really don't want to do this in a meeting, but you feel yourself getting amped up, put your hands on your thighs under the table and just give yourself a slow rhythmic pat. And you begin to feel yourself calming down. A couple of other things is to ground yourself. You're here, you're now. If your feet are flat on the ground, you're here, and it's now, and you're safe. Even though all that's going on out there, you're going to be okay, no matter what. Another grounding technique is your 5 senses. So take in a deep breath, and then look around the room and name 5 things as you exhale that you can see, that you can feel, that you can taste, that you can hear, and that you can smell. That is great. Now, why do we do these deep breaths? When we take in a deep breath and we hold it and then we let it out slowly, it calms your limbic system down. So that amygdala is hijacked and you're on overload. And do it, just test it. Like I just say test it. Do it 3 to 5 times and you're gonna sense a calmness that maybe you haven't sensed in a while. Pray Psalm 91
Yep, that's a
every
big one.
morning, every night. Care for others. I just have to let you know that when you step out of yourself and you care for others, oxytocin is released in your brain. It's like an antidepressant. So for those of you who are like ready to take that step, click that I want to care button, because when you make those 7 phone calls of the names that we're going to send to you, when you hang that up, I'm telling you, it's scientific based research. It's evidence based research. That hormone washes over your brain and you feel a sense of comfort. We're wired, isn't it? It comes as no surprise. God wired us that way. There's an app that Gail Moretta just let me know about, and I logged on and got it. It's called Soul Time, SOULTIME, one word. It's a Christian meditation track. Meditation for me, I'm just going to be honest, it was trippy. I mean, I just could not slow myself down to do it, but now every day, I can't imagine not doing it, because I want to bring the best version of myself to the table, and I can't when I'm amped up.
Yeah.
And people pay for that, and I just would rather. So moving to number 4. This one is probably my favorite that Dr. Henry Cloud taught us yesterday. We're all control freaks, but by nature and by God's design. Andy, did you know God designed us that
He
way?
designed me to be a control freak because he did really well.
So this is the deal. We hijack that control and we are spending it, I'm spending it trying to control others around me. But the real truth is, God said, self-control. Who really wants to hear that? But at times like this, read Galatians 5:13 through 26 for more information about that. Because when we've lost control all around us in our routines, each of us has the ability, when we walk into a relationship, to actually have self-control. And there's something significantly powerful about that.
Yeah.
That even though all this is going on out there, I can have an inner control that God has actually given to me. I just need to tap into it. So I'm going to give a personal illustration. I was sharing this with Andy is, I have a trainer and I go a couple times a week and he pushes me, and I'm an amateur. I'm not an athlete. So this is a real stretch for me. And I'll do like jump roping for a minute. And that might not sound like a lot to you, but for me, that's huge. Because not only do I jump rope for a minute, I do circuit training, and the jump rope is actually my break, right? So as I'm jumping, in order to not skip a beat, I'm using these self-soothing techniques and calming myself down. So at the end of the minute, you guys, I'm celebrating the fact that I didn't trip or fall on my face.
Amen.
So it is possible to be calm in the midst of the chaos. It's totally possible. God created us to tap into self-control. Speaking of control, what would it be like for you to just get a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle of it? And on this side, right, can't control, and on this side, can control. And you just be gut honest of the things that are out of your control right now and write them down. And then make a list of the things that you can control and write them down. Everything in your brain shifts and you have a lot more clarity, and there you go. Feeling out of control actually leads to helplessness, and beyond that, a learned sense of helplessness. It also leads to that white space. And this chart will provide clarity. And the reason why I'm moving in this direction is, in that clarity, you will build strengths where you've had deficits. You will build tolerance where you didn't even know you needed it. And the result of all of this in the long run is what Dr. John Townsend teaches all of us ongoing. Resilience is the answer. period.
Yep.
And when you build and begin to build that resilience, that strength grows and helplessness diminishes. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And all of this we can take moving forward. In regards to control, taking our thoughts captive will be helpful. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, Paul teaches us, I prefer the NIV version,
Sure.
so he teaches us about taking those thoughts captive. Now these thoughts of fear and concern and, I'm running out of toilet paper, these are reasonable fears. These are reasonable thoughts causing anger and confusion, and they're important to recognize and name. Give yourself a limited amount of time to go ahead and get upset about it, and then watch the clock, and 10 minutes later, you're done. Because getting it out is important. We can't deny. We can't live in that denial. It's not healthy. And after that amount of time, move on.
Yep.
As we build strength, listen, recovery time will be less, and resilience will be stronger. So the fifth thing I want to mention is most of us aren't able to do and accomplish what makes us feel fully alive. Most of us want and need to feel competent, and that gives us a sense of thriving. But the reality is, right now, all of that's limited.
Yeah.
And those
Yes.
core competencies, we're having to rethink how we did everything because we can't really do it that way anymore. What would it be like to learn and grow in new competencies? So that's the challenge. Put a pause on the current competencies that you do every day and consider growing in your competency and your skills. But for a moment, let's just set that aside and pause to consider this. It's something that I'm continuing to learn, and it's valuable. The most important thing in our lives isn't what we do, it's who we become. This is the person you and I will take into eternity.
Yeah.
So as I begin to wrap up, together, all of us are together in this, and we are in a bigger narrative. We are in a bigger narrative than the one that's taking place in our very own home. But we're together in this globally. Together, we're a part of a bigger story. Together, we are in a storm. But when each of us invites Jesus into our boat, he has a way of calming the waters and bringing peace where there is chaos.
Absolutely.
And this is what's most important in this moment, is he did that before, and he'll do it again. And God's story is way bigger than this global pandemic. I believe this with my whole heart, with confidence, because the evidence is in history.
Yep.
The evidence is in his story. The evidence is there. And I'm reminding myself of all that he's done and anticipating all that he will do. You see, I read the last chapter. In the end, he wins. So facing our realities and naming them, connecting with one another, ourselves and God, intentionally building structure, learning new ways to self-soothe, develop self-control, and acknowledge that our core competencies need to look a little bit different. These are the things that will lead us in these times of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So thank you, Andy. Thank you to the tech team, the worship leaders, to Pastor Matthew and Corey, to our executive team. Thank you to those who make up Bay Hope Church. I love you deeply. And each of you inspire me to stay the course. And I'm glad to know that you are actually there for me. You are my family. And I'm so, so grateful. Thank you, God, for empowering each one of us in fresh ways every day.
Absolutely. And
Thank you.
And all of what Sherrie is saying, all those notes, everything is going to be available in the sidebar of this video or the comments of this video that you're watching, whenever you're watching it, however you're watching it. We want to be able to help you in every single facet, not just in this little coronavirus, but in life ongoing. So thank you, Sherrie, for being here very much. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.